Hi, my name is Televar, and I live here in the Pioneer Valley, just about a half mile away from the Smith College campus. There's something beginning right here in the valley which is going to affect the entire world. It has to do with all the strange things happening all around the globe, like climate change and the die out of animals, the debt and financial crisis where both nations and young people are in such financial distress. It's going to affect the artificial intelligence revolution and the awakening of new life that's happening here on Earth right now. It ties in with how men and women have just suddenly stopped having new children anymore. The massive political unrest between Democrats and you could say largely women, and with Republicans and largely men. It's also tied in with the wars and fighting and violence that's breaking in around the world right now. All this ties in with something very significant beginning right here in the Pioneer Valley, right now, right here in Western Massachusetts. To explain this, I have to talk to you about one scientific phenomenon, a very high energy particle function, which happens at 3 different time-size speed levels of existence. This thing happens at the very small subatomic level as the famous Higgs boson. It also happens within a biological level at a slower speed in a human embryo at the 6 to 8 week mark in its development. And the same thing is happening right now out in the world all around us. This one specific type of phenomenon, it happens at all 3 of these different levels. But so it starts with a little bit of physics, but there's definitely something here for you chemists and something for you 3 college presidents as well. So first, think about what happens down at the subatomic level when there's a Higgs boson. You have 2 energy fields. There's an inner local field, which can be a Higgs 1 or it can be a Higgs 2 field. And then this is surrounded by what's called a global field, which only has Higgs 2 energies. It's only the surrounding field is only a Higgs 2 energy field. So the larger field is the global field, and the internal, the particle function is happening inside this larger field, and it is called the local field. Okay, so let's say the smaller particle inside goes through a particle function. And if it has a Higgs 2 energy field, then it just is in sync with the outer Higgs 2 energy field, so that's fine. It just goes through the particle function. But if the little particle has a local Higgs 1 energy field, then the surrounding global Higgs 2 field will default, or it will decay. In physics terms, it will decay it into a Higgs 2 particle, unless if the little Higgs 1 particle creates a very, very high energy particle function, and this is the Higgs boson, that's the Higgs boson. If the smaller local particle has this Higgs 1 energy field, it breaks the symmetries of the surrounding Higgs 2 global energy field, and it stops this default or decay. And all of this causes a lot more mass. The Higgs 1 particle becomes a lot more massive. So now let's move to our second level and see this same particle function at the biological or genetic level of existence. So we're going to describe essentially the same basic thing here, only it's happening at a much larger time speed, but also it's happening much, much more slowly. Okay, so if you have a human embryo right at the 6 to 8 week mark of development, and if this is the human embryo, it is inside the mother's body. And right at this 6 to 8 week mark of development, either the mother's negative energies, her negative electrical energies, her electrons essentially, come down into the developing brain and body of this little tiny embryo, which is about the size of a small cashew nut. It comes down and it biologically defaults this embryo into female form. So it turns it female. And if it has two X chromosomes, that's like they both have Higgs 2 energy fields. Then it just goes through that particle function with no problems. But if the little embryo has a Y chromosome, then on this Y chromosome, there is a very high energy gene. It creates a very high energy protein. It's called the SRY gene. And it creates this special protein, which then breaks the symmetries, breaks the mother's, you could call it the mother's global Higgs 2 symmetries, and the little embryo becomes male. So it has to break the mother's surrounding energy field with its, must be a Higgs, a greater Higgs 1 local energy field. So the SRY protein function is essentially the same thing, repeating exactly what happens with the Higgs boson, but at a larger time-size speed level. Now, for our third level, let's look at what's going on with the human race on the planet Earth right now. So think about these comparisons. In the little embryo at the 6 to 8 week mark, it has about 8 billion glial cells. With glial cells, they are not connected to each other. They can get cancer, and if you shut off their electricity, they continue to function. With the human race, we have about 8 billion people on the planet. We are not directly connected to each other. We can get cancer, and if you shut off our electricity, we continue to function. At the 6 to 8 week mark of development, the glial cells begin to make and maintain the neurons, and we humans have just begun to make and maintain our computers. Neurons directly connect to each other with the embryo's brand new neural network. They start connecting to each other. So it's right at this time that the little neural network is getting started as all the neurons connect to each other. These neurons cannot get cancer, and if you shut off their electricity, they stop functioning. And in our human world right now, our computers are all connecting together through our brand new internet. They cannot get cancer, and if you shut off their electricity, they stop functioning. So in the little tiny embryo, the glial cells have been there all along since the beginning. But it's right at the 6 to 8 week mark that the little embryo starts to electrify, and it starts to get these neurons and build its neural network. And we humans have been here on Earth all along. And we're just starting to build our computers and our brand new internet right now. And it's all beginning to connect together into our internet. And it's right at this exact time that the little embryo, just as it's beginning to electrify and starting it's all this electrical brain and neuron stuff and everything, where it defaults into female form or it masculinizes. It's the mother's negative electricity which flows down inside the embryo and defaults its developing brain and systems into female form. And for humanity, we just began to electrify everything over these last 100 years or so. And we've created this new screen world that we all live in with all these phone screens and computer screens and TV screens, this whole electric world that we spend so much of our time looking at now. And all of this stuff is fed by negative energy electrons, negative energy electricity. It's all connected together through the internet. So it's at this 6 to 8 week mark that the electrical energies of the mother come down and they just devour. They just simply devour the masculinity of the men. Since the advent of the new computer and internet world, there's just no question that the world of men is just crashing. Our sperm counts are way down. Men are dropping out of college everywhere. Men and women are not dating or getting married or having children anymore. And men are regularly being replaced by women in all the areas men used to work and to lead. But what I'm talking about this here is like a physics function for you physicists. You know how the subatomic physics world has a particle aspect or a particle reality, and then it has a wave aspect or a wave reality. Well, for the human race, our particle world was just our regular world before the new internet and electric age. Men mostly dominated during that time because we were bigger and stronger, the testosterone, all that kind of stuff. And what's happened is we've added on this new electrical world is the wave world. So this is a second surrounding reality system that is sort of attached to our world. We now live in a split particle and wave reality system. And when you take this now, that sort of physics notion, and apply it back to the biological or genetic level or up to our human level, what you could say is that the particle reality must be created by the sperm. It's a paternal reality. The paternal reality creates the reality where men sort of dominate, and then the maternal energies create the new electric reality where women sort of dominate. And so we have had the particle reality all along. That's where the glial cells, it builds a masculine world to start with, because it needs men to do all the building and get everything started. But then at this point, there's sort of a choice. Do you want to keep doing all the male stuff or switch to an entirely different, biologically defaulted, or you could say a totally female system, which is then where the new electric reality, which may not be women, it may be AI and all the computer stuff. In some ways, you can say even though men may have sort of dominated in the particle reality, it included men and women. If the particle reality dominates now and we build a male world, it'll be men, but with women having this energy from the maternal reality. So it brings a lot more energies to women. But the thing is, it's really important to understand that as a greater living entity, there's one overriding question at the core of this new relationship that's developing between these two reality systems. And I mean, the whole thing just depends on this. And the question is, do we have a greater Y chromosome with one of these greater Higgs bosons or greater SRY proteins? If an embryo does have a Y chromosome and it does not turn male, then it will miscarry. Just plain and simple. The entire embryo will die. I think that I have been given these greater SRY gene or protein ideas, or the Higgs boson ideas. I think this whole concept of greater life and all this idea of beginning to understand the relationship between these different time, size, speed levels of existence, that's sort of what these Higgs boson ideas are in a sense. When an embryo turns female, she does it by really just sort of devouring the internal male energies, because a woman cannot become truly female if she's filled with very strong masculine energies. That's not going to build a heterosexual female that will lock in with a heterosexual male. But for a heterosexual male, see, here's the catch-22 of the whole thing sort of is, men, we need our mother to carry us, to give birth to us, to nurture us, to feed us, to grow us and develop us internally, and then to give birth to us and raise us and everything on the outside. And so men do not turn against the women. This is why I'm bringing these ideas to you women first. What the male embryo does is it forms a new relationship with the women. So what the male embryo does is it forms a new greater relationship between the group of sort of all men and the group of all women. And instead of just dividing human up into progressives and conservatives, the male embryo separates its men and women and forms this new greater relationship between them. And this will re-energize the individual relationships between men and women. So people will start having children again. The embryo will go through a burst of growth and start growing up from about 8 billion glial cells and neurons and stuff like that up to 100 billion. What I'm asking from you Pioneer Valley women, from you scientists and college professors, is I'm asking for you to look at a video series which I've put on my YouTube page, and it proves out, it does the best job I can do here, over 18 videos plus now this 19th video of trying to prove out that the human race is in fact a developing greater embryo. It spends some time at the physics level, some time at the embryonic level, sometime in levels of the world around us. And explaining that we do have, it has a video in there proving that we do have a greater Y chromosome. But I think really the proof is sort of in the whole series of videos. If you look under the bottom left hand of this video on YouTube, you see the name of my channel, Paradigm Shift by Mox. And so after you finish watching this video, if you click on it, then it shows my videos, but first you'll see that it says it's on the home setting, and you'll just see a few videos there. But next to that, if you click on the videos button, that will show you all 18 plus this video, all in order. So it lays everything out there for you in order, and that's sort of a good start place. These videos explain piece by piece how we bring the human race into greater life. They explain the physics, biology, and genetics. Most of all, they explain the human aspects. And I know you can all feel just how stuck our world is right now. You know, we're not doing anything about climate change, the die-out of animals. Now there's all this fighting, and the Democrats and Republicans, men and women. This holds the answers for all of that stuff, for an entire, as though we're on the cusp of a transition into a higher state of reality where everything sort of smooths out into a new system, and we burst into just a whole new stage of life for the entire human race. That's what I'm asking you scientific women here in the Pioneer Valley to take a look at and sort of judge my series, judge me and my series, and see if you think that I make a convincing case for that. This is really the answer to the question of which came first, the chicken or the egg. If some of you women are mothers, you know, you're the chicken, you're the outside Higgs 2 field, and this, what I'm trying to do here, this is the egg. For you women to get pregnant and have children inside of you, you need someone to do something like what I'm doing here to start the process of building, at least building a boy. It might reach this point and then go through something different if it's building a girl. In the email, I included all 35 of your email addresses and everything, so you can easily communicate with each other. You don't need to include me in that. You can just sort of talk with each other and see whether you think I make a convincing case here or not. All of the videos are about a half hour long, and besides this one, there are 18 of them. But if you go down to that little gear thingy, you can make the videos run a little bit faster. So there's 9 total hours of material roughly, but you can speed that up a little bit if you like watching it at a faster speed. There's something in it definitely for you chemists. I'm going to get to that right here. There's a lot in it for you physicists, and there's also definitely some important stuff in there for you college presidents. For you chemists, in the first 2 Mox Logic videos, Mox Logic Part 1 and Part 2, I introduce an entirely new logical system which is going to change your lives as chemists immediately. It shows in 1 hour, just 1 hour, an entirely new universal logical system, only the second one in all of human history after mathematics. It shows the underlying isotopic and allotropic structure of atoms, basically the programming for why atoms form the way they do and how they control their bonding and their behaviors. It's the single biggest scientific breakthrough in all of human history. And, mathematics takes years and years to learn, but this Mach's logic system is it's as though it's made for this moment. And so in just 1 hour, 2 videos, you can basically understand how why atoms work and function the way they do. The logical system is going to keep going deeper and deeper through the years, but you can understand the basics of it in just an hour. For you physicists, after an introductory video, there's one video introducing the whole idea of this sort of paradigm shift and what it's going to mean for our whole reality. But then the second video offers a new explanation for the shape and form and structure of existence. With that in place, the next 3 videos are about the theory of everything, just fitting the pieces together in a new model which contains the idea that nature has these repeating time, size, speed levels of existence, and thus allows for the notion that we can be developing into life as a greater human embryo. The video series goes on to cover the concept of greater fusion, a whole new relationship between women and men, and lots more, including some things that are not so scientific, like some reparations ideas for African Americans and also for Native Americans. Now let me say something to you 3 college presidents. Let's speak in the language of money instead of science for a minute here. This is an acorn. Imagine that inside of this little acorn, imagine it's out underneath the snow all winter, and inside it has some kind of bantam life, some sort of living system, sort of like we have here on Earth in just some form or other. Imagine when spring comes, the snow melts away, the seed cracks open, and this little acorn breaks out of the seed, and what it has inside the seed all winter, it has what I'll call a seed economic or a seed financial system. That's what the human race has right now. But imagine when it breaks out and it suddenly looks at these oak trees, that it realizes this is what it's starting to grow into. And it sees these just huge, gigantic oak trees, millions or billions of times its size. For us human beings, the sperm cell and the larger egg cell join together, and they develop into hundreds of trillions of cells. Just imagine the financial difference when you change from a seed economic system into a new, what I call a growth economic system. Now, if your 3 schools here, the 3 small colleges, Smith College right near where I live here, Hampshire College, which has men and women, but is a super liberal, school, and then Mount Holyoke College, as well as I've included a few professors from UMass, which is close by, but especially for you 3 small schools here, imagine if you are the schools that bring forth a whole new living reality system for the human race. Do you think that will help your enrollment? Do you think that'll help your endowments? Do you think it'll bring interest and lots new students and just energy and excitement around your school? Plus, I would personally go to the human race and say, I think these 3 schools that help bring us into life should be given a financial gift to help, to reward them for their help. So I think you should. So I think there's lots of financial reasons and just general. This could be a transformation for your colleges, into a higher state of existence as well. I think it's really worth. This is life coming from this Pioneer Valley and bursting out through the whole world to move the whole world from the wars, the fighting, the arguing into just a life process where, you know how humanity advanced forward in the early days was when they started to have specialization and people took different jobs and stuff. You had a blacksmith and a shepherd and a farmer and a grocer or something like that. Well, it's time, using our new financial system, to have all different nations and different states here in America take on jobs. As we begin to specialize into all these different areas, there will be something for everybody all over the world. And all of this can come out of the Pioneer Valley here and through your schools. And just quickly to you, to you physicists again, so you have this tiny little acorn, okay? So say it's like the human race in this little acorn, and it's suddenly you burst out and you're seeing this entire new reality, and you're switching from these little tiny acorn rules, overall acorn physics, acorn rules inside acorn finances, into this entirely whole new set of oak tree rules. You're in a whole much larger system. That's inflation. This is the inflationary period in physics. That's inflation. That's the inflationary period in physics as the human race resets from the global rules and everything that we have now into a whole new solar construct. And this is about moving out into the entire solar system, bring the entire solar system into life. As you women know, the egg cell has 8 different parts. It goes through the first division and then a second division and then a third division. So it has like 8 cells all within that same that first egg cell. And we have 8 planetary systems in this solar system. And then it's the next division where it really starts to move out. And that's when we would start, like 1,000 years from now or something, to begin to move out into the Milky Way galaxy. But so the human race needs to go to a transition from our earth rules or seed rules or acorn rules into the new oak tree or larger solar set of rules. And that's as we make all the adjustments and all that sort of stuff and start to get everything ready for these changes and start figuring things out. It's at some point a whole new set of rules and timing and things working at a certain, different speed are going to lock in around us. But we'll be in an inflationary period for a while. And again, what sets up the inflation happens through a scalar field. What particle creates a scalar field? The Higgs boson. So it all fits again. Okay. As I get near the end of this video here, let's answer one question which you women might have. You could be thinking, why is this greater life getting created here in the Pioneer Valley in western Massachusetts, of all places? I mean, you'd think it would come out of Tiger-Euphrates Valley or maybe the Valley of Megiddo or something like that. Why here in western Massachusetts? Well, look at this Google Map image of our area here. You can see Smith College on the left side of the river, and that's where I live, not far from the Smith College campus. Hampshire College is on the right side. UMass is just to the north of the map, and Mount Holyoke is just the south of what I'm showing here. So look at the line that the river makes through the area here. Do you see where the river makes what appears to be a male penis and testicles from a side view? That stands for the idea that a male or a masculine insemination has occurred here in the Pioneer Valley. It's coming from the east side of the river, and it's just showing that there's a male connection to what's happening here. But now look right below that image on the left side of the river, and what you see is a perfect female human breast. That signifies that the west side of the river here where Smith College is sort of like a womb for this life process. I first got hit by these powerful greater life ideas when I was living over in Amherst on the east side more than 30 years ago. But then I, didn't really understand. I moved over here to Northampton and I became very introverted and had these ideas of just taking over my life. And I've been working on them for more than 30 years here in my little apartment, just obsessively working and working and working on trying to understand the physics, the chemistry, the genetics, the biology, and the anthropomorphic idea of all of these things in the world around us of how we are developing into a greater living system. Okay, but so that is interesting so far, but now think about this line from chapter 12 in the book of Revelations where it says, "And a great portent appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet." And look at the Smith College thing there. So with the moon under her feet and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was with child, and she cried out in her pangs of birth, in anguish for delivery. Well, now take a closer look at the view of the woman's breast right here in the Pioneer Valley. Can you see how the only white sandy beach you see in this whole area of river running through here, it looks like a drop of milk dripping from the nipple of the woman's breast. And when does a woman drip milk from her breast? When she's in anguish to give birth. It's right there in the Connecticut River saying, a symbol that it's time for this birth process to happen. This may be too far out for all you serious skeptical scientists, but so this is a little bit wild. But this is sort of some of why I think this is coming out of the Pioneer Valley here in Western Massachusetts. The whole world is crying out for these ideas. You women are the ones who give birth to children. I mean, should we just ignore all this? What do you think? I hope it's not just too far out there for all of you. But if you look at the videos, I kind of divide things up into right brain stuff, which is a little bit more far out. Some of that stuff I just said right there is kind of right brain stuff. The left brain stuff, I don't bring the right brain stuff into the critical thinking of the left brain stuff. So I follow the proper scientific process. But I do want to warn you, in the video series, in the very first video, I do something a little bit crazy. Shouldn't have done it right in the very first few moments of the very first video. I was having trouble getting started, and I sort of did this time traveler thing. And I left it in because it really shows a different perspective. If you listen to it, you can sort of see, you look at the problems our world is going through from a very different kind of perspective, but it's also just a little bit far out there. So the first couple minutes of the very first video are a little bit wild, but then it really locks into just very good critical thinking, scientific type thinking through most of the rest of the whole video series. And so I'm asking you women to take a look and, I really think this is the path forward for the entire human race, and we can end a lot of the wars and the struggles and just move into a whole entire new place for the whole human race. So I hope you'll take a look and communicate with each other and see if I cover enough stuff in these 18 and with this 19th video to make a convincing case that the human race is developing into greater life. Thank you very much.